Okay. So I'm going to end this and just let you know that that's what happened. We on November 1st, the video I just showed you, she just had her platform. So in October, the UN had picked uh, I think 6 women, all were black, in different countries to represent. Okay, so I'm gonna get a hold of her, and because if they don't get a hold of me, I'm gonna get a hold of her. I'm gonna get a hold of her anyway. To and I'm gonna leave a link for you to see the whole entire video. Okay, so this will be part 2. I'm just going to end it, but the part 1, um, so just to let everybody know that I've written to the United Nations because they had accused the United States of high treason, crimes against humanity, and now punishment must be laid out. So if punishment must be laid out, also the rules and regulations of the promised land must be laid out as well. So it's a wonderful time. This is truly a wonderful time to to be alive right at this particular time because we can see how judgment is being laid out. That's probably what my first video should have been about. It was like judgment is being laid out. But I'll make another video. But anyway, I just wanted to make this quick video to show everyone that shout out to Yeshua Pandera. He sent me this link about the United Nations laying down uh, the punishment against the United States for high treason and genocide against black indigenous people, which they kind of set back on our misery for such a long time. It's real questionable. So I had to let them know, okay, let me get my platform and let me represent my people in America. And if you don't, I mean, why you surfacing now? Because you got some, because you are accused of high treason yourself. You ain't don't want to admit that. Let me just to be front about it. The UN do not want to admit that they are in trouble as well. That's why they came out and start pointing the finger at America. Let's just get that out right now. And the UN must understand that yes, you are not escaping. You are not escaping because if you look at the story of Rwanda in 1990, you allowed 800,000 black women and children to be murdered, head cut off and everything, because the Houthis wanted to kill the Tutsis. So the Houthi rebels wanted to kill the Tutsis, and you let that happen in 1990. And you let a whole bunch of other genocide happen in Africa, which you supposed to be the police department in Switzerland, which is interesting. Why would Africa allow Switzerland to be their police department? See, it's other cultures that bring about the genocide. It has to be the black race that actually can house and manage their own race. Now, with the Houthis against the Tutsis, you have to literally look at the Houthis. The Houthis decided, the president, and they had their own army in the Houthi rebel army, decided to kill a whole bunch of Tutsis. Who would allow the Houthis to do that? Who? The United Nations would allow that to happen, and why? We don't know. But that's the question that we need to ask. Why would you allow the Tutsis, the Houthis, to murder 800,000 innocent men and women and children? Because the United Nations was the one who propaganded, who put propaganda with the Houthis to kill the Tutsis. See, the United Nations only have money to fund an army, then to fund the news media to propagandize the genocide of another country. Who can do that? Whoever has money. Whoever has money can do that. A government that is United Nations would have to pay these Houthi rebels to do that. Okay, so what is the main core of the problem? Money, poverty. If every person didn't have, if every person had their own level of money and wealth, then there would be no poverty. You can't get the Houthis to shoot the Tutsis if they were all rich. If all the Houthis were rich, then what? How could you pay a person to go kill a woman and her children? The reason why the Houthis can go kill a woman is because they're poor. If both sides are rich and that side still goes, then you got a psychological problem and you must be taken out. Because if both is wealthy and the Houthis still go and kill the Tutsis, then the Houthis have to be taken out. All of them. You have to see, in the promised land, we make everybody wealthy. So there's no excuse for you to steal off nothing because nothing costs money. Because everything is free. So everybody have their own wealth. If everything is free, there is nothing for you to thieve off of. You can't steal anything. You can't be corrupt if everything is free. If everything you have everything. So you know what I'm saying? And you just work for it, but you work for it on your time, 4 hours a day, any day you feel like it, and you just do what you've been doing. And everything is free to you in the promised land. It's free. You don't have to steal or nothing. You don't have to go and sign up on an army because you don't have nowhere to sleep or you don't have no food or to feed your family. You don't need to sign up to an army. We take care of the person who thinks that they want to form an army to take out another tribe. We got to get that man. Why would you form an army to take out another country? Just tell me that. Why would you do that? Well, because we just don't like them. Okay, we got to take you out then. That person that acts like that is the product of an Eve man. He's the product of a lizard man that can't think straight. Why would you want to kill another culture just because you don't like them? I just don't like that tribe. And I think we all should just take them out. But see, that's the thing. Who are you to decide that somebody should live or die? Well, there's a whole army of Houthis that killed a whole bunch of Tutsis for nothing. Women, and cut off the head of a woman. And this was all in 1990 now. This was not way back then. This was 1990. That means that prior to the Houthis and the Tutsis rebelling, somebody came in and convinced the Houthis to kill these people. Somebody came in. Because how is it that you were peaceful before, but then all of a sudden, suddenly Houthis just want to start killing somebody? Because somebody came in and infiltrated. Who would that be? The UN. Because the UN and the government and the U.S. government are one and the same. They're one and the same entity. And what they do is these are other cultures who are not indigenous black people to this world, but other cultures who feed off of black people in this world, who set up poverty. They literally create poverty so that everybody can fight in war with one another so they can take over. Because if they're rich and they have all the money and everybody's poor, they know that we're going to go to them and ask them for help. But if we eliminate poverty and everybody's rich over here, we're going to be looking at them and we're going to have to take them out. We're going to have to take out this fucking beast that created poverty. Now, if the Tutsis and the Houthis is rich and they have their own, and the Houthis decide they want to kill the Tutsis anyway, then it's the Houthis that you got to get rid of. It's a bloodline like that. Now, what's that bloodline? It's the UN and the government system that has set this whole thing up from the very beginning. Because before they got here, we were fine. Africans were fine, and Americans were fine. I'm talking about prior to 1313, prior to 1200, prior to 1619, we were fine. So the genocide that happened in Rwanda, that happened in the 1990s. Who would do such a thing in the 1990s? The UN. Because if one person got their head cut off, somebody should have called the UN, and UN could have like, who cut off the head of a woman? Oh, the Houthis did that. They would have to get that person that actually did that crime and to show an example of the Houthis. Okay, you're going to have to go to prison for cutting off her head. Why did you do that? Well, we the Houthis, and we don't like the Tutsis. Well, who was here first? The Tutsis? Oh, the Tutsis was here first, and you the Houthis that don't like the, oh, then the Houthis got to go. Because whoever was on that land first have to stay. And whoever don't like the indigenous have to go. Yeah, y'all gotta go. You have to build your own land over here, and don't be hating on nobody, because if you build your own land here and you still warring with somebody, then we have to get the individual that does that crime, and we have to get the mother of that individual that done the crime. Why you focus on the mother? Because the mother birthed out these type of men. She has to have, and every woman like her who gives birth to a man that decides to get into an army to kill another culture, that woman that gives birth to these men have to have a hysterectomy. Each and every last one of them. You can never procreate. You just, some women just ain't allowed to have children. I'm just saying, you have to get to the root of the problem. The problem is women who birth out these evil men that decides to have a government to take out another race or another people. Who are you to take out another culture? Who are you? Is the question. So if there's a government that says, well, we're going to take out this rebel army, you have to ask the question of, okay, why? Now let's talk about Hitler. Why did Hitler do what he do? Because his family and his father and his generation went through what we went through. They were subjected by what we went through another race of white people, right? Hitler went to that race that took his whole family out, that took his generation out, and is still putting down the hammer of the law on his people, and they're all indigenous. It's like, but we're indigenous. We're from the motherland of Russia or something. And why would you come against my family? Well, because we're the government system. Okay, we got to take you out then. If you created poverty and you got an army that works for you based because they don't have nowhere to stay and nowhere to live because you created a poverty, well, then let's create it to where everybody have the same wealth. And then let's see if you can create an army out of that. Ain't nobody going to work for you if everybody got the same amount of money and shit. And so who you thinking about killing? So if you feel like you want to have an army and everybody's okay, then it's that person that have to go. It's the man that does the crime that have to go. And you have to get to the mother. Who birthed you, man? You got to get to this man's mother. Then you go to the man's mother and you say, how many people did you create like this? Oh, 6. I got 6 boys. They all in the army. Ooh, bitch. You got to get your tubes tied, ho. If you think you going to keep having kids like this, bitch, please. And we're going to round up every single woman who give birth to army men. Because we're not going to kill them. We're just going to have them a hysterectomy. You're going to have a hysterectomy, or, the kind where you can't have babies. And what you do is you just, live your life. You just can't have kids. That's all. Because we're not going to get up here and sit up here and pretend like we don't know what the root of the problem is. It's the woman that gives birth to men that decide they want to kill out a whole tribe of people for unknown reason. Either greed or power or whatever. If you're greedy and you want power, you got to go. And your mother have to have her hysterectomy. So she won't have no more kids like you. Like that. That's how we have to get rid of this problem here. Okay, so we don't have to kill nobody. We just have to give the women who births out the evil, we got to give them a hysterectomy. And then we have to get rid of the men that keep thinking that they want to just kill a whole culture just because they feel like it, because they in the government. Okay, we're going to have to get rid of them too. So that we can live in peace and harmony. Because that's what the real problem is. Okay? So if you're a mother and you giving birth to wonderful sons who don't want to kill nobody, don't want to go into the government, and they just, and they just want to live in peace, and they create things, they create wonderful things, and yes, please, by all means. But if you have a son or a daughter that wants to be in the government to rule over another person or culture, then that person have a psychological personal problem that's psychological to him, and he might be of a lizard. That man and woman might be a lizard. It might not be human at all. Because who are you to come here and try to rule over somebody, Okay, so it's got to be where we have to look at that DNA. We got to look at who birthed you. Okay, how many women birthed these type of men? How many? Yeah, but some of these women can't have kids. It's just something. Just because you a woman don't mean that every woman got to have children. I have four, and the apple don't fall too far from the tree because my children, they would, I have good children. My children are wonderful. I never had problems where my kids were, ghetto or anything like that. My kids are, they're quiet, they're well mannered, they don't, and they're normal children, you know what I mean? And because I've met women who had children and the women were crazy and the children were crazy. And then I met women who are normal and the children are normal because the apple don't fall too far from the tree. I have normal children, like God like children where they're all beautiful and they all think intelligently. I give birth to those type of children. But then there are women who give birth to, I don't know, just maybe it's the discipline that they didn't do or something like that. But I think because some of the children are just not human. Some of them are lizard children where they grow up to want to be in the government to kill other people. They're just like that because they like to feed off that energy. Lizard humans that look like a human but are not like to feed off of misery. That's what they do. That's why the government is that way because they're all lizards. And divine intervention had to step in and say, hey, there's a COVID-19, mask up, separate from our indigenous children because you're out of line. You're out of pocket. You need to be contained. And that's what it really boils down to. People in the government must be contained. If you are allowing genocide to happen in a country and you don't do nothing about it, then you have to be removed immediately. And somebody got to replace those people to where it could never be genocide. Never. Okay, so, um, yeah, so I wanted to show a thing about this woman who she's a survivor. Uh, she's a survivor of the Rwanda.
The 1992.
Okay, so okay. Now this is this genocide. The story about this woman who.
And I said,
Okay. Okay. Let's look at the story of her. She was Her family was genocided. She was 12 years old when the genocide had started in her town.
the bodies of people um, being fed to these dogs and dog eating them and sitting, being frightened, knowing that if they see me, they will, bite me. I think I was not, I was so terrified.
So Rwanda was largely made up of two tribes. Can you explain the first moment where you really realised there was a difference between these tribes?
Oh, the first time that I really realized was a different was when it was in 1990. I was in preschool, in primary school, and our teacher asked us, "Are you a Hutu? Are you a Tutsi?" And you will raise up your hand. And I didn't really know what they were asking, so I didn't raise up my hand. I went back home and they said, tomorrow don't come to school when you don't know your tribe. So that day, that time when I was sent back home, my mom told me, when they ask you next time, stand up in the Tutsi. So we were only about like two students or three.
Okay, so she was two students of Tutsi. So she's from Tutsi, but she was in the school of Houthis.
In the class. Raise up my hand. I went back home and they said, tomorrow don't come to school when you don't know your tribe. So that day, that time when I was sent back home, my mom told me, when they ask you next time, stand up in the Tutsi. So we were only about like two students or three in the class. And you have that feeling like I am not wanted, I am not accepted. My classmates don't really like me because of how I was born, and I didn't have a choice about it. I didn't understand, why am I being called a cockroach? Why am I being bullied at school? Why do I have to be beaten or see people being beaten for being Tutsi? So those things were happening when I was growing up, and really it's the ideology, propaganda that was leading to genocide in 1994.
Okay, look, she just said it was propaganda. It was propaganda that was leading to genocide of 800,000 people, men and women, children and babies being murdered. Okay, now, if the United Nations is the government and they could see that happening, where are they when this happened? Where? Because you see, the the Houthis is an army. Where did they get the money to be an army? Where? And why? Why, if the United Nations is the government over Africa, then how come they didn't bring the troops when one person died? No, before even anyone died, when they started doing the propaganda, how come they didn't get a hold of the news, like over here? People here, we have black people, lawyers and attorneys who are cowards, judges who allow this white government news media tell us how to lay and stay. So we're the government that speaks for us is speaking against us. And it's so bad in Africa that when there's propaganda there, you end up getting genocided.
What was their goal?
I wish I could answer that question. Their goal was to exterminate every Tutsi. I remember sitting in the lounge with my dad and my two brothers, because my mom was away. She went to visit our grandparents, and she was with our last born, who was 2 years old then. And I said, I'm not sure if your mom is going to get back. Um, they are going to kill us because we are Tutsi. And he just gave us briefing. He said, um, you know, put on, we were already in our pajamas, ready to go to bed. And he said, put on your clothes, wear layers. So we had 2 layers each. And he said, if you hide, don't hide together, because if you are together, they will kill you all. The next day, on the 7th in the morning, there were all these people running around the village. I remember hiding under the bed on that day. Uh, they came to our house, and my dad was not there because he went to hide. They say, where is the cockroach? Where is Inyenzi? That's the word they used to use in Kinyarwanda. And they are talking about the soldiers that were fighting against them. I'm like, we don't know where they are. Um, so on the same day, in the evening, I went to hide in the bush. And when I was hiding, I went, of course, our dad told us don't hide together. So I went alone, and I was hiding in the bush and wandering around and waiting. I was lucky because I didn't have identity card.
Okay, so that means that her father had to hide and leave his children, because if he was with the children, then they all would die together. So the question is, who would allow this to happen? Like if there is a government that is the UN, and the UN is supposed to help, then where's the UN at? I mean, And then he said, well, you have to put on 2 layers of clothes because they're gonna come and kill us. Okay, who? Well, they said, well, the Houthis. The Houthis gonna come and kill everybody there. And then even the police department or the people that was fighting for the Tutsis for this woman right here, they were being murdered. So the Houthis was killing the Tutsis for what reason? For really nothing then, right? But if it's for okay, so let's just of course it's for nothing. But the question is, where is the government? The government is the UN. Okay, well the UN is the UN must be put down. They must be contained because it's the UN that did that. Because where did the Houthis get this info? Where did they get the money for the guns? Where did they get that type of authority to just go to another and just go kill 800,000 people? Like, where did you, who told you to do that? Just a group of fucking government people, just you could just shoot down some people? It's the government that allowed that to happen, because how come the UN didn't step in?
We used to have identity card in Rwanda that's written which tribe are you. So, and you don't get that ID when until you are 18 or 16, I think. Um, so I wasn't being asked the ID, so I will hide in front of people. But there's a lady who was walking, hiding, and she had a baby, and she had her ID, and she was just shown her ID, and they just cut her head off. She had a baby. I can't tell how old she was, but was so young because she was still feeding her, and walking, seeing this